welcome back to Mickey Car Beauty. I'm Mickey, and on my channel I love to talk about luxury skincare and beauty. And today I'll be doing a review and wear test of the new SUQQU foundation. This is newly released and it is coming out on September 7th on Thursday. And I'll link the retailers that will be selling it. I'll put the prices that were listed below. I did receive this as a gift from SUQQU, but with no obligation to review. But I love SUQQU, so of course I was going to review it and compare it with my old OG cream foundations, my SUQQU liquid foundation, seamless skin foundation, and then also the SUQQU Future Gel Skin Foundation. So if you're interested, then keep watching. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe, like, comment. Helps out engagement on my channel. And with that out of the way, let's begin. So here we have close-ups of the new SUQQU cream foundation, and it's this beautiful product here, and I got it in the shade 4040 and then a little tester in 35. Now I have the formula of the older cream foundation. So here's the new cream foundation here in 40, and here's the older one in 40. So I'm not sure if it's showing up in the camera, but it's almost looks like this, the older foundation, the older 40 cream foundation is a little bit more brown, whereas the new cream foundation in 40 has a little bit more red, peachy undertones. It's so slight, the new foundation, the cream foundation, the new one in 35, and this is the older formula in 35. So I think what's showing up here is that actually the new 35 in the new formulation of the cream is a slightly lighter and a little bit more light, more of like a light yellow, whereas this has a little bit more red, the older cream foundation. And this is the liquid foundation in the SUQQU formula, and that's this one right here, the SUQQU liquid foundation, this one here, and I have it in 35. It's a different formula entirely, and these are all 35s here. This is 35 in the new formulation cream, old 35, and this is the liquid foundation 35. And you can see the liquid foundation, it's definitely a different texture. It dries down a little bit matte, where this is a little bit more radiant, luminous, and this one is a lighter overall 35. I can't even wear this one right now with the summer tan. It's just too light. And I love this foundation so much that I have 35 and 40 of the old foundation, and I actually cocktail it as I get warmer in the summer months. But right now I've been using 40 all summer because I'm deep enough. And so
I got this. We are here for the new SUQQU foundation. As I had said, that I got this as a gift from SUQQU. So thank you, SUQQU Europe. And you know who you are. I reached out and asked if they would consider giving me this as a gift for me to review. And I would say out of my entire makeup collection, my favorite of most like bought products are probably SUQQU, Chanel, and then maybe Lisa Eldridge. It came in beautiful packaging, which I showed you at the beginning. It came in a box, which is very similar to how the original cream foundation arrived. And so I am between shade 35 and 40 in the original cream foundation. And I did look up online on the SUQQU's website. I'll try to do a screenshot here. I often look on their website to see which products are going to be discontinued. So they are going to discontinue these cream foundations as of September 1st, 2023. And the cream foundation will now just be known as foundation. So there's foundation, and then there is the liquid foundation, which they're still selling. So again, I have the gifted product in shade 40 and 35, which I asked for. And then I have 35 and 40 in the original cream foundation, and then 35 in the liquid foundation. Okay, so I tried to find some information about these products online, and it was a little bit hard. There was no PR information about SUQQU that I could find. And what I can see just from at least the packaging, both of these products are made in Japan. Both of these are 30 grams, which is the industry standard. In terms of the packaging, you can see that it's this is definitely a frosted glass, and it's definitely shorter. Here, let me show. Where this is kind of like more of a heavy-duty plastic jar. And it's very subtle. It's very elegant of how SUQQU is, but there's almost like a wave. Can you see it right here? A wave on the packaging. It's like a small detail, but I think if you are a SUQQU lover, you'll notice like it's not just flush to the glass. There's a wave in the design of the glass, as well as even here. There's a wave, and that's just like one of those things I always think about how SUQQU, which is a Japanese company, has quality of detail, just the little things, beautiful packaging. I think it looks more even luxe than this old cream foundation packaging. They're both in a jar. This is again frosted glass. It's lower. It has also gold and black, but instead this time the entire edge of this is gold, and the top is black with the SUQQU label up here, if you can see SUQQU. So it is a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but not as bad as this. I would get my fingerprints all over this. So it's still in a jar form. Again, it's called now just the foundation, which it used to be known as the cream foundation. I'll do some screenshots now of the ingredients because I couldn't tell from the website what the difference are between the old foundation and the new foundation. So here are some screenshots of the old versus new foundation ingredients. The one product I'm going to use is this Tatcha primer. I'm putting down this Tatcha primer, and I like to use this. This is the Silk Canvas primer. This is the new foundation, just the foundation. It does come with a cover in this. It is a bit messy. I'm generally not a fan of jarred foundations, and I love SUQQU and this foundation so much, this formula, I just tolerate it. This is the new foundation for SUQQU in 40, and you can see I had like less than half of a pearl size, and it's so much product. This is what I remember about this product, is that you don't need a lot. It's a little bit, goes a long way. 40 in the old formula, which is this one, shade 40. also as a jar like this, pretty messy. Again, I love this foundation so much, I just tolerate it. 40 in the old foundation. See that this is actually a little bit deeper. This is a bit more yellow. So this is 35 in the new foundation. This is 35 in the new foundation formula. Again, you can see how that little bit, it's so pigmented. But what I end up doing is cocktailing them, so I can mix them together if this is too dark, or sometimes I will put the lighter one in the middle and then the deeper one on the outside. So again, this is 35 in the new foundation, and this is 40 in the new foundation, which I think is a better color match overall, as you can see. So this is 35 in the original cream foundation. It has, again, that top. I'm just getting a little bit. So the new foundation in 35 is much lighter and more yellow, and the original 35 is, I would say, a little bit more neutral olive leaning. More brown, and the new one is more yellow. So the 35 is lighter in the new formula, and the 40 is deeper than the original, if that makes sense. So 35 new foundation and 40. And this is very, very light. So the 35 I can get away with if I spread it, but it definitely starts to look ashy if I put anything lighter. Now I'm going to shake up the 35 in the liquid foundation. And then just, again, this is a different formula altogether. It's a bit more, it's less emollient. It's more matte, like a demi-matte. And you can see it's much lighter. This is a foundation I actually can't really use now because I'm a lot deeper. So 35 in the liquid, original 35, and 35 new. So the original 35 is actually a better shade match out of any of these right now for me. 35 liquid, 35 original cream foundation, 35 the new formula for the cream foundation. We're going to go into this new cream foundation. It does have this little thing here. Again, I am not a fan of jar foundations, but if the formula is that awesome, I will basically the best word I can say is I can tolerate it. So it is just cream foundations, and jars just get messy. This is new. Again, it's getting inside, and that happened with my last SUQQU jar. Okay, so there's a whole bunch on here. So actually, I know it's not hygienic, but I'm not a makeup artist, so it's just me using the product. And if it's like the last foundation, I don't need a whole lot, and the thing with this foundation is not to put too much. It's best to work in thin layers with this product. That's a really good shade match. And in terms of the finish, the original was kind of like a creamy, like a radiant satiny matte. And I have oily skin, so as my day progressed, it would just turn into kind of like a nice radiant, not dewy, but a radiant kind of glow. Okay, so this is the foundation one side with less than, I know the directions said 1 to 2 size pearls of product. For me, I'm like, what size pearl? Because you can get pearls that are big or small, but I just know, at least from the original foundation, it's best not to put too much, or you can it starts to look like foundation as opposed to, this is like the closest I can think of. It's almost like a skincare slash foundation. In a way, it reminds me of, maybe they're trying to mimic what the Chanel Sublime foundation or the Clé de Peau was trying to do in their jar, like the high-end products. But obviously it's more affordable. It's not just over the $100 mark. But I think it's more beautiful than those foundations. Okay, so I don't want to fuss too much. This is just a really light application of shade 40. And I don't even want to do shade 35 because I know already it's from that swatch. It's just going to make me look ashy. If you want me to put on 35, let me know below. I can just do a screenshot of a quick like one I can put on Instagram. But for the purposes of the review, I'm going to stick to what I know is going to work for me, because it doesn't make sense to use a shade that I know is not going to work for me. Okay, so I think that's looking really beautiful. And you're going to see just boop a little dot and how emollient it is, or pigmented rather. It just has a lot of coverage. This one almost feels a little bit more like skincare. It's a little bit wetter or moist, whereas this, there's like almost like it almost feels a little bit, I don't know, almost feels like it dries down to a powder. Again, there's no smell, which I love in SUQQU products. They don't put any perfume, unlike, this is the original foundation here, and this is the new formula. They're both 40. And it just looks like, it's like that, almost like that gel formula that we see with Chantecaille. I'm not quite sure if it is that gel formula, but it's pretty popular in Japan. Okay, so I got in closer so you can see how it's really wearing on the skin. And again, I have rosacea here and texture, so you can see how it's just looking really, really pretty. It's very similar to the old formula. I think it's really subtle, the differences. The only differences I'm seeing so far is that this formula feels a bit like it dries down more to a powdery finish, but not matte, if that makes sense. There's like a more emolliency in the old formula that felt like more like skincare, where this is feeling more like it's just drying down a little bit more, but not in a bad way. So I'm gonna get in close so you can see, and I'll get in close to my forehead. You can see. I try not to put too much on there because it looks a little bit uneven. And then this is what my texture is looking like on this side. My nose is usually the tell about foundations, and that looks like it's holding up really well. And that is this side. Don't like to put too much, if it's similar in formula. If I was a hunch that if I put too much on this, it starts to get lighter, or it starts to get a little bit more like cakey, like it looks like I'm wearing makeup. I like to use a thin layer of this, and you really only need a little bit of product. A little goes a long way because I feel like it's very, very pigmented. The Chantecaille Future Skin Foundation, how it's different, I feel like that is an oil-free foundation is what I remember, and there's more water in it, so it feels more light in a way. So if you're looking for a natural looking, natural wearing foundation, I think that Chantecaille Future Skin Foundation is not the same as these products. It feels very like the most natural, most beautiful, in my opinion, natural looking skincare foundation. It's one of my favorite foundations. I just haven't bought it again because I have too many foundations I need to finish. It is so beautiful when it wears down. It just wears down to a beautiful natural glow, as opposed to, it doesn't, to me, I don't feel like that's makeup. It feels almost like skincare with a bit of a tint, and not in a bad way because I still get coverage on it. I just know that every time I've worn that foundation, my skin looks more beautiful through the day. And same with this, it's different, but it definitely feels more like foundation, and I get more coverage with the SUQQU original foundation. We'll see if that's the case with this product, and then I'll do a bit of a wear test and then check in. Okay, so I finished the rest of my look, a SUQQU look. I'm actually doing a video of the Autumn-Winter 2023 collection. This is Casa. And I just wanted to show you how the foundation is wearing. I almost think this is a self-setting foundation. So I didn't powder anything except for my under eyes because I just do that with the foundation or the concealer I have. The foundation looks like it's more full coverage than the original cream foundation. So right off the bat, I can see that. It almost definitely looks like it's self-setting, meaning it almost looks like it almost has like a mattifying finish. And I could feel that when I was putting down the foundation. The original foundation just feels a little bit more creamier. It reminds me a little bit more of the Chantecaille Future Skin Gel Foundation, but this is definitely has like more, it definitely looks like more of a foundation on, but it definitely feels like it's more blurring. It looks like it's more full coverage. But what's nice about it is I love this for a different reason. I think it's a different formula entirely. It's not the same. This will look a little bit more radiant and dewy, and it actually feels like there's more, like when I would touch my face with this, I could actually feel the foundation more. With this new foundation, I could feel like this, it's drying down a little more. It's not as tacky, and even on how it looks in real life and even on the camera, it looks like it's self mattifying. And the only other foundation I know that does that, it reminded me of the Clé de Peau Radiant Foundation. I'll put a picture of it here. It's in that tube. I actually sold it because I reviewed it at the beginning of the year and I just was not light enough. So I wasn't using it, not that I didn't like it. So I sold this one, but it reminds me of this Clé de Peau Radiant Cream Foundation here. And then in terms of the self-setting, it reminds me of the Lisa Eldridge Seamless Skin Foundation, where I don't have to, or at least for me, I don't have to powder it down because it's self-setting. So I think there's some sort of self-setting technology with this foundation. What I can say for sure is that it almost feels more full coverage. It is definitely more pigmented, and it's drier going on, not in a bad way. It just feels, again, it's part of like that self-setting, but it self-sets to almost like a blurring effect. And I don't know if you can see. I mean, I usually have to powder down every single foundation I have because I have such oily skin, but this I don't. It's almost like it's like perfectly blurred right off the bat. It's it's part of that. I was just gonna say, I think it's part of that like Japanese technology that I feel like Japanese makeup is always kind of doing research to improve, to be better. And that's why I'm really, really interested in Japanese makeup and products, because I think they're really, I mean, like all beauty industries, but there's something about Japanese products in particular that they go for a certain aesthetic of flawlessness, of blurring, whereas in the West we want everything to be like Instagrammable and very like Kardashian like look, and very like, I don't know, I'm just gonna say it, like plastic surgery-esque. And it's a different aesthetic with SUQQU. So it's a bit more soft, subtle, elegant, and that's more of the aesthetic I'm seeing, at least from my viewpoint as a Westerner looking at SUQQU. I hope I don't mean to offend. It's just something that I noticed, that its aesthetic is just a little bit more soft and elegant with their products. So I can tell you 40 is definitely a really nice foundation match. I'm wearing this on purpose so you can see, and it's wearing down beautifully. I'm actually really impressed by this foundation because I don't think it's the same as the original cream foundation. I used these almost every week. These are like my top shelf foundations, so I'm really, really grateful and thankful that SUQQU sent me these new ones, because I'm such a SUQQU like a fangirl of their products, but moreover like their foundations, obviously their lipstick, blush, and eyeshadows. I think it's different foundation, and I'm glad I have it. It's wearing down almost like a full coverage, luminous, satiny matte foundation. My face, my complexion looks gorgeous. It just reminds me almost of what I've been using. Let's see if I can find it. The final effect of this, just with the again, I didn't prime. The only thing I did was put Tatcha on these cheeks because I have big pores. The intended result, like the end result, reminds me of what happens when I put down this Chanel Healthy Glow cream in rosy beige, and this isn't available in the States. I ended up getting this overseas, and I use this as a primer, and then whatever foundation I put on this looks like this almost like luminous glow from within finish, like perfected, blurred, and I'm getting the effect of this. So if you missed out on this product because you're not, I think it was only in Asia, and then I want to say Australia and New Zealand they released this. Maybe Canada. I think Canada. I'm not sure. But this was not released in the United States. If you're wanting to get the final effect of this product with whatever this plus foundation, I'm thinking it's SUQQU is what you want to try, because SUQQU has this like instantly blurred effect. I feel like I'm having a filter on my face, but I don't. It's just the foundation, which is pretty remarkable that it looks like this. Yeah, I love, other than eyeshadows and blushes and lipsticks, I really love trying foundations because certain companies will keep researching for the best type of foundation. And I find SUQQU, Chanel, Clé de Peau, and other companies, but those ones in particular, like Lisa Eldridge, are looking at the latest technology for a certain kind of finish and aesthetic. But let me know, I'll get in close so you can see. Really beautiful. And as you know, like my closest foundation shades are below. I have aging skin. I have texture here. I have rosacea and eczema. I've gotten rid of my eczema, but rosacea here. And I have big pores. I have wrinkles here, an oily T-zone, sensitive skin. So I got a couple of things going on, but this foundation is looking almost like a full coverage and then having this instant blurring effect. I'm back. It's been about 2 hours and I'm noticing some things about this foundation already. And what I am noticing is that even though it feels like it's self-setting, I have oily skin. So if you have oily skin, I think this still needs to be powdered down. It is hot where I am. It's about 80 degrees. So I've been sweating, doing housework and all those things. So similar to the original cream foundation, I do have to powder it down. So I'm going to grab my powder and then powder this down. Okay, I'm grabbing my Sisley powder. This is a Matte 2 with my Chikuhodo brush. Yeah, it definitely looks better when it's powdered down. Okay, and I did have dinner already, and I had a burger and stuff was flying everywhere, and I did the dishes. So it kind of actually did really well. It still looks really, really refined. I use these Tatcha rice papers that blot oil. And I probably should have done this before I did the powder, but here we are. And then I just am so oily that there's always oil on my skin. And so just you can see how it's looking. I do have acne here. It's breaking up a little bit here. Not here, which is usually my tail. I have some fallout with this SUQQU eyeshadow. It looks pretty good up here. I feel like this foundation deserves another wear test, but with primer, and seeing what happens when I put primer down. Okay, so I'll come back at around 10 and then show you how the foundation's wearing. I'll get in close so you can see what's going on with the foundation. I actually ate dinner right after I put this on, and I noticed there was some wearing down here. So let me get in so close you can see. I don't know if you can see it. It's worn off a little bit here, and it looks like it's lifting from the skin a bit. I don't know if you can see, it's a little red. So it's lifted from here. The rest of the face looks okay. I think this would still benefit from a primer. It looks like it's almost a little bit too drying, and that's something the cream foundation didn't do. I can see where it's pulling a little bit, like right here, and I don't think that has to do, I don't think it has to do with my concealer, but what I'll do is I'll use a different concealer tomorrow just to make sure. In terms of like photos and video, it looks really good. I think it's worn down a little bit here and here. I did not use setting spray, and again I use a very, very light application of this foundation. So what I'll do is definitely use primer tomorrow, and then I'll actually put a little more of the foundation on to see if it doesn't wear off as much. I feel like it looks really good here, but not so much here and here. And again, this is actually where I did prime, so I'm beginning to think I should have primed it here. Anyway, so I'll do a wear test tomorrow and then report back. I am back with day 2 of this wear test of the new SUQQU foundation, just the foundation. They dropped the word cream out of it. And I'm just showing you the tops because it'll spill out. So this is the new foundation and this is the original. Okay, so this is 40. The new formula. And you can see it's way more full coverage. You really don't need a lot. And then this is 40 of the original foundation. It feels more emollient but less pigmented. It's a bit, the original foundation is more sheer, and if you like that, then you should probably go out and get backup of this one. So you can see that there is a bit of a shade difference. I think the original 40 is a better match for me. It kind of melts into my skin tone, whereas this, because it's fuller coverage, it definitely looks like foundation. But some people like more coverage, that's the thing. So if you're wondering, if you're not new to SUQQU and you are familiar with their foundation and love their original cream foundation, you might want to think about getting a backup of it because they are discontinuing this from the SUQQU website, but retailers probably still have it. So you can even see this is the original here on this hand. It's a little bit more, it's more like a light medium, whereas the new foundation is definitely more medium to full coverage. It reminds me a little bit of how that Chanel Water Fresh tint and then the Water Fresh Complexion Touch came out, whereas the Water Fresh tint is a lighter, more like flexible shade, whereas that Complexion Touch is more pigmented and more blurring and more pigment. I would say this is a little bit more like skincare. You can see almost like there's like a skincare dewiness to it. It's definitely more oily. So I could see some people that maybe not have liking this one because it's a little bit too oily. And I'm an oily skin gal, but I didn't mind it. I like kind of like a dewy look still. So it definitely looks like skincare, whereas this definitely looks, you can see, it definitely looks more like foundation, where it's going to blur more. And I think you can just see the difference more with my hand. And there's a luminosity to this too. Can you see it? There's like a radiance in this foundation that you don't get into that. And that is who this foundation is for. If you want something that's a little bit more radiant and reflective, but full coverage, the new foundation is going to be for you. I tend to not like reflective foundations because for me, it's just me, then I know I know my skin type because I have texture. It tends to emphasize the texture, whereas if it's more just skin-like, I can, it just hides the texture more. But we'll see, we'll try again. And you can see where this is actually 40 and the new 40, it actually is a bit lighter. It's a bit more yellow. So it's actually not a perfect shade match for me, whereas the original 40 is. The liquid foundation is much more like a traditional foundation. It's a bit more thinner, and the cream foundation or the foundation is definitely geared towards a more mature audience. So it's very pigmented. A little goes a long way. There's a lot of pigment and there's a radiant sheen to it, whereas this original liquid foundation, it's more runny. It feels a little bit thinner, and I would say it's more of light to medium coverage, but buildable. And I actually like this on days where I want it to be a kind of like a lighter foundation, but definitely it's less, how would I say, it's like less pigment. What I'm noticing, and I read The Beauty Professor, you should check her out. She just came out with a really beautiful blog post. She actually has all the shades of the SUQQU foundation. I'll tag her video and also her blog post below, because these are really hard to get, and I just want to help out people, and that's why she did it too, is that SUQQU is not available in the United States. So you can't, unless you live in Asia or the UK, it's hard to go in to do a swatch test. So she has all the shades, so check that out. I read her description on her blog, and it's true. What I'm feeling with this new foundation is there is a little bit of like a self-setting element to it, and there is clay in this. I don't know if there was clay in the original, but part of that clay is like a dry down, and it kind of self-sets this foundation. So the formula is very different. It's not the same to me, at least how it presents on my skin. And I just have to give the caveat already that my skin is very, very fussy. I don't have really nice, like perfect skin, and I'll actually show you. I just have skincare on today, and so I have a lot of texture here, a lot, and this is like from just having to deal with rosacea right this here. I call this like the cheek triangle zone, where I'm just really hyper aware of certain foundations don't look good on me. I do well with either natural skin tints or things with a lot of, unfortunately, silicone. And the SUQQU Future Skin Foundation, it is not a similar formula to this cream foundation. The SUQQU Future Skin Gel Foundation, which I'm very familiar with because that's the only foundation I've ever panned, in addition to Chanel Ultra Le Temps. Those are the two foundations I've ever panned in my entire life because it's so fantastic. That Future Skin foundation has a gel-like texture, so if there's like a slip to it, it almost feels like there's more water, and it just because it's like a gel like water base throughout the day, it just looks like really beautiful skincare. This new foundation definitely feels like foundation. It's definitely a different formula. It doesn't look like a natural foundation. It looks like foundation on the skin. This is Prime with the Tatcha Silk Primer. I'm going to grab a combination of shade 35 and 40 because I actually think the new 40 is deeper than the original and the 35 is lighter than the original cream foundations. And so what that means, it's not a perfect shade match for me. Okay, I'm grabbing a mirror and then just putting some of that 35 in the center of my face. I use the brush. This is a brush I have. This is Real Techniques. You can get this at Ulta. I do feel like this foundation is a bit less emollient than the original cream foundation, and for, you know, who is that for? I think for people who have oily skin, or for people who did not like the original cream foundation because it was very oily. Okay, I'm gonna take some of 40 and just dot it, and this is what I've done with the other foundation. And I'm actually not doing this brush strokes kind of action. I'm actually just kind of dabbing the foundation in because I'm getting to know this foundation. I think it's best to just pat it on and just almost stipple it, not rub it on, if that makes sense. Something to note, if you know that you're not a jar foundation person, this is gonna drive you nuts. So I would say, like, know yourself if you don't like the messiness of jars. Yeah, this is like gotten messy already. I'll powder down one side of my face and then leave the rest of the other side alone. So this is this side I'll powder down and just taking my tried and true Sisley. I'm using a Wayne Goss airbrush brush. This is a squirrel hair brush. So powdered, no powder. Hi Beauty Fam, I'm doing a 2-hour check-in and I'll get you in closer. And again, this is the side that's powdered down and this is the side that's not. You can really tell because it doesn't look as finished. The foundation is wearing pretty well. I did put some Charlotte Tilbury spray and I'm using the product like I normally would. I would put primer down, foundation, and then setting spray. What I'm noticing is that chin area, the makeup is lifting a little bit. So I'm just kind of watching that. That didn't happen with the other foundation. I don't know if you can see, I took my lipstick off because I had lunch. It's definitely starting to separate here. You can see some of the pores and whatnot. It doesn't look cute. The rest of the face looks good though. This side looks really good, matte. And maybe it's just that this area needs to be powdered. Okay, so I will come back in a couple hours and do another wear test. Hi Beauty Fam, I'm at about the 9 to 10 hour mark on this SUQQU foundation, and I haven't powdered it or touched it up since I last, actually when I first put on the makeup. So let's get in close. It is evening, so I have studio lights on. I think it's wearing well for 9 hours. I mean, again, I did prime it and then I did set it with the Charlotte Tilbury setting powder, but I would say the side that I powdered down looks so much better than this side. It just looks like it's a little bit more put together, where there's like more, you can see more of the texture in there. So I would say if you're an oily person, to definitely prime and then powder and set down. I think this foundation compared to the original cream foundation is so much less oily, which will be good for some of us who have oily skin or who didn't like the original cream foundation because it was so emollient. I think all the good telltales of a good foundation have passed in my book. Usually if it's not a good foundation, there'll be tons of wearing down, especially here in the chin and here and here. Who is this foundation for? I think it's definitely marketed for the mature audience, so probably maybe my age and up. And it reminds me of the level of marketing and that you're gonna see for the Chanel Sublime foundation and the Clé de Peau jar foundation. And because of the texture, it does remind me a lot of, I had samples of the Chanel Sublime. I didn't buy it, it just didn't work for me and actually didn't test very well. The Clé de Peau, it reminds me of that Radiant tube foundation, which I really liked, except I had to get rid of it because it was too light. Ochre 40 is too light for me. How it sets down, almost, you don't have to powder it down if you don't want to, but the way it sets down, really reminds me of the Lisa Eldridge Seamless Skin Foundation. This is the Lisa Eldridge Seamless Skin Foundation, and it's similar in that it's all you need is one drop, and it's a kind of a self-setting foundation, but there's more slip to this. So I'm going to take some here now and just kind of show you a comparison. So this is 20.5 in the Lisa Eldridge, and this is 40 in the SUQQU foundation. And there's actually a little bit, because there's a luminosity to it, it almost looks like it's lighter. I don't know if that makes any sense, but this is a 20.5, and the Lisa Eldridge is not luminous, it's more like skin-like. It's a different finish, but what's similar is that it seems to dry down to a finish that is almost self-setting. I don't know if that's making any sense, but if you've tried the Lisa Eldridge foundation, you know what I'm talking about, that you after 30 minutes to an hour, you can see that it self-sets and you don't have to powder it. So the liquid foundation is something I like to wear more in the summer just because it's light and it feels more like a traditional foundation. It's more liquidy, and I showed you how it kind of runs. This is definitely very, very dense and pigmented. So I like using this in the summer. I actually use this quite a lot, even though it's a little bit too light. I just bronzed up where it was too light. So I really love this. It's not the same formula. So if you want a SUQQU foundation that is not geared and marketed towards mature skin and something that's I would say not self-setting and a little bit more like or radiant glow, this is like more luminous. It just feels a little bit lighter. There's still radiance in there, but it's more a satiny radiant matte, and this is lighter wearing. I don't actually feel this foundation either. It's a really interesting foundation. I don't feel like I'm wearing foundation either. Okay, compared to the original, what's different in this foundation is that there are clay minerals versus the old foundation, because this did not self-set. It just stayed glowy and radiant. And some people may or may not like that. I prefer not self-setting foundation just because I like to set it myself. I like to control my matteness, but that's just me. 24 shades featuring a brand new shade 205, which is the lightest of pink beige ochres. And that's a criticism I've heard about these foundations, that it doesn't go light enough, that it's too yellow. So it looks like they added one or two perhaps that that are lighter. The foundation swatch starts with O, which mine does, O35 and O40. That means O has a neutral to yellow olive undertones. So that suits me because I definitely have a yellow olive undertone, and then when I'm paler, I'm more neutral. If it starts with an I, that means it's a neutral undertone. And if it's just the 200 series too, like 205, 280, have a neutral to rosy undertone. What I'm going to do is actually just do this before I sign off. Okay, so it's looking good. This is a really pretty foundation. It's not the same as the original foundation. If you were to ask me which one should you get, I can't tell you that. It's just a matter of preference, because I know some people really did not like this foundation. For me, this is one of my favorite formulas of foundation. So, I mean, obviously I've gotten to 35 and 40 just to get the perfect match because I like it that much. You know, it's hard for me habits to break. I really love this formula. If you were to ask me right now, which one do I prefer? I still prefer the original, but you know, I have this in 40 and 35. I'm obviously going to wear test this over time. So I think it's a lovely foundation. I think it's really cool that it's actually kind of self-setting. It's definitely more pigmented, which I appreciate. Sometimes this with the oils, it would wear down. And that's something I would say about this, because it's so oily. The longevity of this is not as good as the new one. So that's something to look at. If you have aging skin, I think this new one's going to be better because it's just more pigmented and covers more of your flaws. Whereas this, if I'm having a bad skin day, I don't use this because it's might show some of my flaws, but this is such a full coverage foundation. It's definitely different in that it's a full coverage, and then the original cream is can be a light medium, but this is medium to full. So if you're looking for a full coverage foundation, you have mature skin, that you want some radiance but not super oily, but some richness in and your foundation, and then for it to look luminous, then try the new SUQQU foundation. That's what it would be for you. If you prefer a more traditional bottle foundation and not having to mess with a jar, I think you're going to know already if you're a jar person or a bottle person. For me, I prefer bottles, but if the foundation's that good, I will just deal with it and use the jar. So I love the packaging on it. I think it's even more beautiful. What I do like is that you can actually see the foundation color. So if I were to get the 35 of this, which I'm considering doing because I was gifted this, then I could see the actual shade that I'm pulling. Whereas this, I have no idea the number that I'm pulling. Okay, I think that's it, beauty fam. That's all I can compare it to. I know people have been asking also, how does it compare to Chantecaille? You know, I love Chantecaille, that Future Skin foundation, but it's not necessarily for mature skin. I like that for, I prefer that as the best natural looking foundation. And I think it's a different league of foundations where that's more like a skin tint, natural ingredients. And this is definitely marketed towards like mature skin. So think Clé de Peau, that jar foundation, which is like over $200. The Radiant Cream foundation, which is in the tube from Clé de Peau, like higher end 100+ kind of foundation, or the Chanel Sublime. So think of that. I think that's the kind of comparison of what SUQQU is kind of, it really reminds me of those foundations. And the last thing I'll say is that if you are in love with the original foundation, you might want to think about getting a backup, because as of September 1st, they've taken this off the SUQQU website. Retailers might still have it, but I looked at the discontinued website or the page on the SUQQU.com website, and it will be discontinued. And the cream foundation, this one, the original, is no longer. They're not selling this. It's just being sold as the foundation and then the liquid foundation. I hope that was helpful, beauty fam. I'm gonna sign off now. I did change my lipstick because I did eat dinner, and I have, just for your reference, the Vibrant Rich lipstick and the color 112 Natsufuyu, a neutral cool pink. Okay, so if you enjoyed that review, I hope that was helpful, Beauty Fam. And if there's any question that I didn't answer or you weren't clear about, then ask me below kindly. I hope it was helpful. And then if you learned something new, then give me a thumbs up and comment and like below, and then subscribe and click all for my videos. And as always, please be very kind with yourself and others and just be you. Take good care, Beauty Fam. Bye.